Living on purpose the ninja way. As most of you know, we are very much in the arena of being on purpose in everything we do in life rather than being on accident. And so I'd like to start with a question that is just basically a rhetorical question. And it's simply, are you living your life by default or by design? Another way of putting that is, are you living your life on accident or on purpose? And I think all of us probably can attest to the fact that at some point in life we've been on accident, and some days we're on accident. But the fact of the matter is that, are we intentionally laying out our lives? Are we intentionally designing our lives on purpose and focusing on what we want rather than what we don't want? So what I'd like to do is start with what we call our simple steps to living on purpose. And I believe you have the handout, so if you'd like to take notes, feel free. But number one, to live on purpose, you've got to know your why. You've got to know your reason for living. Maybe you've had a season in your life where you maybe didn't feel like you had a why, or you were in a season of disharmony, or whatever you want to call it. But we're talking generally speaking. Generally speaking, are you living your life because of the why that's underlying? Ask yourself that question. I'm going to unpack these in their entirety. Number two, are you controlling your focus, your emotional energy, and your fear? As realtors, and maybe it's just because I've really never known anything else, but we tend to have a lot of emotional energy, and we tend to fall into pits of fear every now and again. So where is our focus, and are we doing our best to control that? And then lastly, are the habits and our peer group. Am I focusing on the habits that I want to get, that I know I should be doing to get the results? And who am I hanging out with? Who am I surrounding myself with? Because all of these will lend themselves to our why, and whether or not we ever get there. So let's start with discovering our why, discovering our reason for living. I'm going to talk about a book in just a moment. And in this book, the author calls people who don't have a why a drifter. I really like this word. I like this word a lot. I don't want to be one, but I like this word because, if we're honest, but I'll just speak for myself, there have been times in our lives when we're just drifting. We have no chief, aim. We don't know where we're going. We really don't have a why. There's a lot of undercurrents, if you will, and we're drifting along. In fact, I've caught myself way before I read this book saying something like this in class. It's one thing to be on purpose. It's a whole nother thing to bump along the bottom. I like to fish. And so I often think of fishing and a stream and my bait being on the hook at the bottom of the stream, and it's just bumping along the bottom, right? I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that in my real life, in my business life. I want to have a chief aim, if you will. In the book called Outwitting the Devil, how many of you have read that? I can't see all of you at once, but if you're on here, so a few hands I see. This quite possibly, this book could scare you. It could. In fact, when I actually listened to it, I thought to myself, this is super scary because it seems so real. So what Napoleon Hill talks about in the book is that, of course, drifters are someone with no definite chief aim. They don't know where they're going, why they're going. They definitely are drifting. They're living on default. They wake up in the morning and they decide how they'll handle the day depending on what the day delivers. So certainly not on purpose. They're in a very continuous state of distraction. Another way that I like to phrase this, and it's just my way of phrasing it, but they're not content. They're not content at all. They're very much distracted by, I want to do this, I want to do that. Oh, I don't want to do this. they're very, very much focused on what others think of them, which can be a very dangerous trap. They're focused on being entertained. Can I tell you what this means? What Napoleon Hill didn't mean was entertained like, watching a movie or going to a show, but they're focused on, they get sucked into TV, they get sucked into wrong lifestyles. They want to be entertained. In fact, another way of saying it is they have no thoughts of their own. They're drifting towards what they focus on, right? And then the last thing he said, and I promise I'm going to unpack this completely, so don't check out, okay? Is that the drifters are the devil's favorite target. Now, I'm going to get to the whole devil thing in just a minute, but I promise I'm not going religious on you, and I'm not going hippie voodoo on you. It's just a metaphor for what he's talking about in his book. And what's interesting about this book, what's absolutely fascinating about this book, is that it was written in 1938. This book was written in 1938. Now, before I move on, would you just take a look at this list of his definition of drifters? Like, this could have been written yesterday. It's so relevant to where we are today. And yet the book was written in 1938, and he was so concerned about the impact of the writing, or the controversy that it would cause, that as the story goes, he said, "You cannot publish this book until I die." And so he passed, I don't remember what year. And then his wife said, "You can't publish this book until I die. It's going to create way too much controversy." Why were they so afraid of controversy? Well, he was talking about a lot of people that mattered in the day. I'll get to that in just a moment. And he didn't want to cause controversy. I mean, it would almost be like you and I talking politics out loud in our real world, our real estate world, right? You got to be careful. There's certain things you just don't say. And so this book ended up not being published until 2011. I find that fascinating. What else is fascinating about the book, and what made it intriguing to me, was that in the book, it's written in a narrative form. In fact, it's written, if you have an inkling to read the book, I would consider, even if you're not an auditory gatherer, to listen to it. I see Erica shaking her head. She must have listened to it. But I'll tell you why. Because the devil had one voice and Napoleon Hill had a different voice. So it was almost like you were there, right? You got to listen to the conversation. But the controversy that they were afraid of came from the comment that Napoleon Hill made with regard to so many higher ups using fear to control people. Doesn't sound anything like today at all, right? Using fear to control people. And so who was he afraid that this might be controversial with? Well, I'd say almost everyone. Religious leaders, teachers, politicians, media, whatever that looked like in 1938, parents, sales, everything. So the title, Outwitting the Devil, that scares people for starters. It scares people for starters because they're like, okay, this can be a weird book, but it was written by Napoleon Hill. Maybe I ought to give it a chance. So in the book, what is the devil? What is the devil? It's not a red guy with spiked, whatever, the tail and all that. It's not that, right? Horns and all that, right? Here's a quote: "I am a principle or form of energy which expresses the negative side of matter and energy. I am not a person with a forked tongue and a spiked tail." So the character is a principle or a form of energy that expresses the negative side of life, right? So it's not really the devil, whatever that means to you. It's the negativity. It's the cesspool of negativity that we live in these days. It's in our homes, it's in our families, it's in our world, it's in our media, it's in our churches, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And that's really what he's talking about in this book. So what is the devil's favorite tool to use? Well, his favorite tool to use is fear. And universally, we have a choice. It's either love or fear. It's not love or hate, it's love or fear. It's love or the unknown, if you will. And the definition that we use of love, it comes from two different places, but this is the definition. It is not Webster's definition. But the definition that we use of fear is the absence of love. Marianne Williamson, in her book, A Return to Love, this is one of her quotes: fear is the absence of love. In the Holy Bible, 1 John 4:18, there is no fear in love. So whichever side of the fence you lean toward, that's the definition of fear. Now, what they don't mean by love in this definition is intimate love. This is more the all-encompassing. My favorite term in Ninja is loving on others, and I made it up. But instead of being in the flow, instead of being in relationship, if we just love on others, life is so much better. And fear is the absence of that type of love. Interesting, conversely, love is the antidote to fear. Love is the antidote to fear. Think about it. When you just love on others, you feel better, they feel better, there's no judgment. And here's a statement that we don't like a lot, but it's true. If you're afraid, you're thinking about yourself. If you're afraid, you're thinking about yourself. We teach this in the installation all the time, that if you're afraid of picking up the phone, if you're afraid of meeting with that client, if you're afraid to run into someone at the grocery store, that's because you're thinking about you. Well, what will they, what if they think all I'm doing is trying to sell them? What if they think that I'm too pushy? What if they, hello, all those statements are me statements. If you're afraid, you're thinking about yourself. Whereas when you focus on loving on others, your fears go away, because there is no fear in love. So let's start with number one. Number one was starting with why. And although I'm not going to show you the video, I'd like you to take note in case you've never seen it. There is a video on TED.com, 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 a TED Talk. And Simon Sinek, it's titled Start With Why. It's a powerful, powerful video. I find it even more powerful today than I did a week ago. Larry Kendall sent me another video, a follow-up to this video, a guy analyzing Simon Sinek's Start With Why, and said, listen to him and listen to how many times he says the word believe. What do you believe, right? What do you believe? Well, that has a lot to do with our why. I'd like to show you a video. I'm always nervous, I just got to tell you the truth, because even though I'm hardwired, will it work? Will it not work? So I'm going to hope that it does. If it doesn't work, will somebody go like this to me so I can just stop? But I'm going to believe it's going to work. And I want to show you a video with regard to why. Take a look.
How do I know? A lot of people, when they think of the phrase, how do I know, they always want to put the what behind it. How do I know what I'm supposed to do? The question that you really should ask is, how do I know why I'm here? Because when you know your why, your what becomes more clear and more impactful. If you know, like for instance, people know that I do comedy, but that's what I do. My why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. So I can do comedy, I can write books, I can be in a movie, because all of it is motivated by my why. In fact, I have a new web series out called Michael Jr. Break Time. We probably just did the 6th episode. It's on YouTube. So every single Wednesday at 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode on YouTube of Michael Jr. Break Time. What it is it's me. I travel around the country and I do stand-up comedy, in case you didn't know. And in the middle of my comedy set sometime, I'll stop and just talk to my audience. And we've been filming this, and it's pretty cool. So we're in Winston-Salem. I'm gonna show you a clip from Winston-Salem. And I'm just talking to this guy in the audience, and he tells me that he's a musical instructor at a school. So I was like, all right, you're a musical instructor, you know, can you sing? Let me hear you sing a song. So this is what happened at the last episode of Michael Jr.'s Break Time. Check it. So you're a musical director. Cool.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Wow. That bro could sing. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now, what you give me the version is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick, if you know which version I'm talking about. Just see if that exists. Let me see what you got.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now, right now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Okay. Here's what I want you to catch. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what becomes more impactful because you're walking towards or in your purpose.
Wow, I get chills every time I listen to that. But how impactful was that, right? Our why helps us be on purpose. Our why is the rocket fuel to our life. I was in Denver last week, and I'm the instructor, and so I'm the instructor. I'm the one talking all the time, right? And I had a student ask me what my why was. And I knew what it was. I was able to articulate it immediately, but nobody ever asks me that. But when they ask you that, and if you know what that why is and you articulate it, it brings this emotion to like right here. Like I could hardly swallow. I had almost tears in my eyes. It was just a why. It's just mine, right? But it's literally the rocket fuel of your life. It's the rocket fuel of your life. So how do we know what our why is? Because why do we teach this class? I'll tell you why. Most of us get caught up in, I'm so busy, real estate's challenging these days, and so on and so on and so on. And we forget about why we're doing what we're doing. When we have a big enough why, it doesn't really matter how challenging it is. We're living out our purpose. So one of the ways to begin to detect what your why is to have a life list. Do you have a life list? Do you add to it all of the time? Do you check things off as you do it? Do you remember things you did 20 years ago that you go, man, that's right, I did that. That was so cool. Put it on there and check it off. It's a fun way to begin to determine if you're living on purpose or not. And the categories, by the way, are family, occupation and career, recreation and dreams, and who do you want to be and what do you want to give. But we all should have a life list, something that's driving our passion. And am I working towards it or am I working away from it? Are the activities I'm saying yes to drawing me further from my why, or closer to my why would be a great question. In fact, they made the movie The Bucket List after the original adventurer, John Goddard, The Power of a Life List, right? He says this is his quote. He says, the quality of your life is the quality of your list. So what does your list look like? What does your list look like? Our list programs the reticular activating part of the brain, and it programs the part of our brain that makes us start focusing on what we want. So if I have a life list and I'm thinking about it all the time, what happens is my reticular activating system is constantly looking for clues to help me get to, family, occupation and career, recreation and dreams, and to be and to give. So when I have this list, it's programming me to become that which I want to be, or I want to attain, or I want to give, or whatever the case may be. In fact, I like to call our reticular activating system an onboard Google search engine, because it's searching for two things all the time. Wherever your homeroom is, if you will, it's always looking for either what you want, what you love, what's important to you, what's valuable to you, or if you live in fear, it's looking for what you don't want, what you fear, what you threat. What's a threat? These could be looked at a different way. It's always looking for love or fear. It's always looking for love or fear. What I'm focusing on will determine what it sees. Most of you are very familiar with this ninjaism, but what you focus on expands. What you think about the most, you get more of. Dr. Roger Sperry got the Nobel Prize for his study in what we focus on expands in the reticular activating system. So I just want to ask you to get on purpose again with regard to your life list. What does it look like? And are you on purpose with regard to all these things? Why are we still working? What is the work providing for us? Remember, the goal of ninja selling is to increase our income per hour so we can have a life. What is that life? What's it going to look like? It's up to us, right? So that was number one, our why. Let's move on to number two, and controlling our focus and our emotional energy. You've probably heard me teach on this multiple times. It's one of my favorite things to teach, because what I'm not talking about is how do you feel today. What I'm talking about again is, what's your homeroom? Typically, where do you land? Okay, so we've got an axis of high and low and negative and positive. So the first quadrant is, of course, high negative. It's the volatile, it's the high negative emotional energy. It's anger, meanness, all those things happen in high negative. It's that person that's just ugly all the time. They're just mean. They're not nice. They're volatile. The second half of that side of the quadrant theory is low negative. And if we were in the room, I would ask you, what do you see happen in this quadrant? Depression, woe is me, poor me, entitlement. Eeyore lives here. This is where Eeyore lives, right? Oh, this is not a good idea. Oh my gosh, this is not a good idea. And it's just here's what it is. This side of the quadrant theory is very exhausting to live on. You don't go up to someone that lives on the negative side of life and go, man, does it suck to be you? I mean, like, do you just hate being that way? You don't ask, but seriously, I cannot imagine a single person on the planet that wants to be this way. It's just kind of the way they're wired, and they've not chosen to be different. Let's talk about the other side of the quadrant theory. There's high positive. High positive is very, very powerful. High positive is actually a quadrant that we often call the performance quadrant. Michael Jordan coined a phrase, it's the performance quadrant. It's where I have to get in my mind before I go out on the court. I have a routine, whatever that was, right? It's a performance quadrant. Let me give you an example. So Christian and all your leaders at the company call me and ask me if I'll do this call. Well, if I just took it for granted that they appreciate me and show up and go, okay, you guys, so I'm totally not feeling it today. So I don't even have much energy to give this, but I've got the goods, I promise. Just hang out for an hour. I mean, I would have lost all of you within 15 minutes. When we're face to face with a client in a selling situation in our world, we must be in high positive, because your energy leaks out. You might think you're not exuding an unpleasant energy, but that's not true. Your energy leaks out. It leaks out in the way you walk, the way you carry yourself. Do you stand up straight? Do you hold your head up high? Do you smile? Your energy leaks out no matter what. People can sense it. And then lastly is the low positive. And the low positive is, I always say, thankfully, there's low positive. And the reason I say thankfully is because it's where we go to recharge, to rejuvenate, to just fill our vessel. I mean, where do we go to fill our vessel? We are always pouring into others because we serve others. That's what we do. Where do we go to fill our vessel? And of course, that's in low positive. And it's different for all of us. Since I mentioned fishing, that would certainly fall in my low positive, right? Because for me, just being away, being out, away from everything. But we all have something different. But do we do it? Or are we one of those agents that take pride in, I haven't had a day off for 9 weeks. This market is so crazy stupid that, all I ever do is work. And they go on and on and on and on, as if that's a badge of honor. But we all need to refill this thing on a very regular basis in order to be successful. Always keeping in mind that high positive is where we need to be when we're face to face with a client in a selling situation. Couple of last minute tidbits on this emotional energy. All the way from low negative, high negative, and high positive, those are all exhausting quadrants to live in. Anything negative is exhausting. And high positive, being on, you've worked with a buyer or seller, but buyers especially, right? For, all day or whatever. And you're exhausted when the day's over and all you did was drive around and look at houses, but you were on. So those are exhausting. So take advantage of the low positive quadrant. It's very important to us. The late, amazing Dr. Stephen Covey explains it like this. In fact, first of all, this quadrant theory came from him, but he explains it like this. He graced us with an amazing book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People in, I don't know, I want to say 89, 90, a long, long, long time ago. And he used these 3 golden circles, which several other greats have followed suit. But when he used these, he said there's 3 circles: the circle of control, the circle of influence, and the circle of concern. And we tend to live in a world right now that is absolutely, totally mesmerized by the circle of concern. We turn on the TV and we get sucked in, and what's happening on the news. And I'm kind of the laughing stock of my family, and I'm super fine with that because I don't watch the news. I don't remember what happened the other day, but it was something major. And I said to my husband, honey, this happened. And he goes, yeah, that happened like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, man, I'm glad I said it to you and not to a class or something. But I just don't know what's going on. And here's why. Fear lives in the circle of concern. That's where fear lives. That's where victims live in the ninja world. Victims live in the circle of concern. They're always concerned about things they can't do anything about. I'm a rule follower. I'm a total rule follower. If you say wear a mask, I wear a mask. If you say, I just totally follow the rules. That's just who I am. But I can't change it. I just can do my part, but I cannot change it. It's just the area of concern. Then there's the area of influence. Now, what I can do is I can influence others. I have been so blessed to have a job that, should you be receiving at the time I'm giving, I have a job of influence. I get to influence others. Some receive it, some don't, but I get to influence other people's lives. I have another amazing job that's way more important than the one that I just told you about, and that's my children and my grandchildren. I get to influence them. But guess what I can't do? I can't change them. Can't. Has anyone besides me ever been so concerned over something your children were going through that it made you nearly sick? But you can't change it. All I can do is try and be an influence. Just keep pouring into them and influencing them no matter what their actions look like, because that's all I can do is influence. And then there's control. Okay, full confession. A mom of 3 sons, now 3 daughter-in-laws, 3 granddaughters. I'm a control freak. I would like to control everything. But I learned a long time ago, I have to be reminded almost daily, but I can't control any of that. I can control one person. Who is that? Yep, myself. That's it. And so often I just have to get my head back in the game. I just have to take control of the thoughts, of the fear. But what I'm really getting at here is ninjas are players. So we focus on the control and the influence, whereas the drifters focus on the fear and the fact that they're victims. So make sure that you're focusing on what you can control, which is you, period, which is you, and what you can influence. Don't ever think for a moment that you can't influence others, because you can. You have no idea who's watching. You have no idea if you have no idea. You don't even always get to know who you influenced. But as a ninja, I would like to challenge us challenge us, I guess, I just want to influence others. I might get to know who it is and I might not get to know who it is, but I want to influence others. So where is your focus? Ask yourself, where is your focus? A drifter's focus is controlled by others, by all the distractions, by all the, here's what's wrong with the world, here's why I am the way I am. They live in the circle of concern, the circle that we can't do anything about. Players live in control and influence. They don't even try. They just influence who they can and control themselves the best they can. I love this meme, if you will. I don't know what you call it, but a student sent it to us, and it's just so true. A world of distraction, weapons of mass distraction. We are so distracted by everything around us. We're so distracted by everything around us, we find it hard to focus on what matters anymore. It's a sad state. If you've not seen this movie, it's not a feel-good movie by any stretch, but if you have not seen the movie, The Social Dilemma, this is an absolute must watch. It's on Netflix. It's an absolute must watch. It will scare you to death. And that's not because we're doom and gloomers. It will just enlighten you to all the fear that's swirling everywhere around us all the time. Because what am I focusing on? The circle of concern literally leads to distraction. You've probably seen this quote before, but Robin Sharma, the enemy of mastery is not mediocrity. The addiction to distractions is it's distractions. The addiction to distractions is ruining many potentially awesome lives. Many potentially awesome lives are being completely derailed because they're distracted. They've got the goods, they've got the knowledge, they've got the wherewithal, they've got the personality, but they're so distracted by things they have no control over. All right, so we talked about the first two. Let's move on to the focus, if you will. The focus on success habits. Number 3. There are many great books written on success habits and focus and so on. I literally can nearly come to tears every single time I share this quote. It means a lot to me and my family, but it goes like this: people don't decide their futures. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures. People don't decide their future. People don't decide what it's going to look like 1 year from now. You may have done some business planning and decided what you wanted your coming year to look like. But what really happened was you actually decided what you were going to do, your habits. And your habits determined whether or not you were going to get to that goal. Our habits determine our future. So how do I build habits that last? There's an amazing book that recently was published. I'm going to say recently, but it might have even been a year ago. I don't remember, called Atomic Habits. Has anyone that I can actually see you read Atomic Habits? It's seriously the best book on the topic to date, in my opinion. But brushing your teeth is in there. And he said something so funny. He said, even the way you brush your teeth, even the way you get out of the bed in the morning, you get out of bed exactly the same way. You put your feet on the floor. You do exactly the same thing. When you brush your teeth, you do it the exact same way. You start in the same place in your mouth. It's always exactly the same. So Mr. Johnson and I decided after we read the book, we go, you know what? I'm gonna for 1 week, I'm gonna brush my teeth with whatever hand I'm not. So I started brushing my teeth left-handed. Now this makes no sense whatsoever. But first of all, it was a mess everywhere. Like I can contain brushing my teeth like this beautiful young lady here when I'm brushing it with my right hand. But when I brushed my teeth with my left hand, I'm not even going to describe the mess. It's gross. But it was just not my habit. But you watch when you brush your teeth this evening. You always start in the same place and you have the same process. And there's all kinds of habits like that we all have that James Clear talks about in his book. One of the quotes in the book that scared me until I finished the book was, he said this: one of the problems with goal setting. Well, that scared me because guess what I teach all the time? Goal setting. So he goes, so here's one of the problems with goal setting. And he says, let's just talk about the most common, right? I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to lose 75 pounds this year. I'm going to exercise more. I'm going to go to the gym. I bought a gym membership. I'm going to be more wiser with my money. I'm going to, whatever. Right. These are goals. But what he talks about is the goal is the outcome. This was possibly the most brilliant thing I learned from that book was goal setting is fine, but it's not about the goal. The goal is the income, right? What we need is a system to build habits that last. Success is not a goal to reach or a finish line to cross. It's a system to improve. What am I going to do tomorrow that makes me just a little bit better than today? That's the question we ought to be asking ourselves. Here's the truth. I've had a really bad attitude for 2 days. Yesterday and the day before. I'm telling you the truth. Just had a really bad attitude, had a rough couple of days. And I was reminded this morning during my quiet time, well, of course you had a rough couple of days. Look what you were focusing on. Something you can't change. Of course you had a rough couple of days. Practice what you preach, Terry. So I get my head screwed back on straight. So let's go backwards for just a moment, just in our minds. The emotional quadrant theory. Anybody besides me ever have a bad day where you're just not where you know you belong, right? It's not that we'll never be in one of those other emotional quadrants. It's how quickly do you recognize you're there, pick yourself up, and put yourself back where you belong so you can be on purpose. That's what it's really about. It's not that we're never going to have a bad day or we never get volatilely angry depending on the circumstance, right? So of course, I can't leave you without talking about the Ninja 9 because these are the habits that, of course, when we're talking business, are going to be most important. There are 5 daily habits and 4 weekly habits, and it's a proven system. So where did the Ninja 9 come from? It came from a couple of places. Of course, Larry Kendall and the group. Larry Kendall was invited to be can't remember what they actually called him, but Star Power was Howard Brinton's baby before he passed. and Larry Kendall was asked to be a speaker for Howard Brinton and Star Power. And between the Ninja Laboratory at the group in Fort Collins and the Howard Brinton and being exposed to all these successful people around the country, he began documenting success systems that turned into the Ninja 9. You probably don't have enough room to write all of this, but I just want to give you a few tidbits today about each one of them and the importance of them. So the 5 daily habits, we're going to start with the 5 daily habits. Habit number 1, gratitudes and affirmations. This is how do you start your day? How do you start your day? What does your day look like from the minute you get? So actually, this goes to the night before. Do you plan on getting up early, getting up with a good attitude, doing your gratitudes, talking about what you're grateful for, writing your affirmations? It's the way we start our day. Many of us, our day doesn't go the way we want it to if we don't start our day with our gratitudes and affirmations. I felt like one of the huge benefits to COVID for me, because there certainly were benefits during COVID to many of us, it kind of got us back in check, was my morning routine. I got so on purpose with my morning routine because I had all morning. Being an instructor, my job ended when the world closed down. And it wasn't until August that we actually got to start doing things on a very regular basis. So I got really on purpose with my morning routine. That's number 1. Pretty easy to do, also easy not to do. Well, Terry, I don't like to get up early. So part of my problem with the morning routine is, or the gratitudes and affirmations, is I don't like to get up early. Okay, you decide how you like the outcome. I don't know how else to say it, but your day will go the way your morning starts. So you get to decide. Number 2, time block. Do you have a calendar, a Ninja planner, whatever you use? I use the Ninja planner, but is your time blocked on your planner every day to reflect what it is you need to do to get where you want to get? Interesting, but I was told 54 people signed up for this call. There are 36 on it. My guess is that 36 had it on their calendar and didn't let something else take it off their calendar. They had an appointment. It doesn't have to be a client appointment. They had an appointment. A lot of them might have forgotten to put it on their calendar. But when you have an agenda, when you have it on your calendar and you stay on your agenda, when you don't wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is look at your device, but rather you focus on your morning routine. Number 3, write 2 handwritten personal notes daily. 2 handwritten personal notes daily. Now, I'm going to assume I'm talking to a room full of ninjas. So you take a couple of days off every week. You take weeks off because you're a ninja, so you don't work all the time. So 5 days a week, 2 note cards a day, that's 10 a week, 50 weeks a year because you take at least 2 weeks off. That's 500 note cards. You can write a note to anyone you want, because when you're writing 500, you can write notes to strangers. You can write notes to the server at the restaurant the other night and describe that server to the manager. You don't even know their name, maybe, anybody, but 2 handwritten personal notes. Here's what that is not for. Who can I write a note card to today that'll do a real estate deal? That's not why we do what we do. We serve well because when you give, when you put goodness out in the world, you know what comes back to you? Goodness. So we're not doing it so we can get. We're doing it because it just makes the world a better place. We're loving on the people that know us, like us, and trust us, and they know what we do for a living. Focus on your hot list. So your hot list and warm list go together, 4 and 5. If you don't mind, I like to talk about them together, but I'm hoping that the majority of you are using the Ninja Business Tracker. If you're not, Christian can reach out and I'll give her the most updated version of the Business Tracker. But the beauty of the Business Tracker is that it tracks everything you're doing all the time. One of my favorite examples to use when I teach the business tracker is one of your agents. She is the most on purpose agent I've ever coached. I haven't coached her since, I'm just going to guess, let's say, I don't know, 2015, maybe 2014, but I coached her for a very long time. But I'll bet you dollars to donuts if I called her today and said, Lynn, do me a favor, shoot me over your business tracker. It would be completely, totally filled out. She knows where she is all the time with closings. She knows what's under contract. She knows who's hot, which are the people that are ready to go. They're approved. They're getting their house on the market. They're on the market, but not sold yet. They're hot. And warm list is anybody in the next, say, 12 months, right? That aren't ready, but they will be. Focus on these daily. What we focus on, what? Anybody remember? Expands. So am I focusing on the people? Has anybody besides me ever dropped the ball with a lead? Anybody? You totally had it. You might have even written it down, but I can't find where I wrote it for anything. And you just drop the ball with a lead, right? The beauty of the business tracker is that it's one piece of paper, one very large piece of paper that has closed, under contracts, hots, and warms. And it's got a calculation down in the bottom that calculates every time you put somebody new on there, how close you are to your annual goal. Focus on your hot list and your warm list daily. Larry Kendall told a really fun story. He was interviewing a panel at a convention. They were all ninjas from all over the country. And he asked, what is the ninja one thing? If we took everything away from you, what's the ninja one thing? And what was amazing was that all four of these people said, no joke, all four of these people said, it's my morning routine. It wasn't all the habits like the note cards and blah, blah, blah. They're important, but it's the morning routine. And Cheryl went on to say that for her, she said, when I start my day right, I have a great day. And my great days turn into great weeks. And my great weeks turn into great months. And my great months made my best year so far. How do you start your day? Robin Sharma, again, we love him. Your most important hour is the first hour of every day. What are you doing with that? Yes, first hour, first 60 minutes minimum. What are you doing with that first hour? And are you intentionally getting your head where you want it to be? All right, so I went over the Ninja 5 daily habits, but let me, if you don't mind, cover the 4 weekly habits. So number 6, my client service calls. Well, who are my client service calls? They're everybody. They're my listings. They're my buyers. They're my people that have recently closed. They're just my people that I need to weekly stay in touch with. 2 real estate reviews weekly. These are unsolicited real estate reviews. They're very simple to produce. If Christian wants, I can send a couple of examples. Very simple to produce. Shouldn't take you more than 5 to 7 minutes when you first start. You should be able to hone that down to 3 minutes. And they're unsolicited. It's just as part of my service to you on an annual basis, I'll put together a review so you can see what's happening in your real estate market and with your real estate holdings. And if they own more than one home, you do it for every home that they own. Number 8, talk to 50 people a week. This one puts people into orbit. They go, 50 people, you got to be kidding. That's ridiculous. This is unbelievable. It just can't happen. Well, first of all, I'm working 5 days a week, so that's only 10 people a day. Secondly, I'm in a relationship business. It requires me to talk to people. If you're going to do business, you got to have people, right? So am I talking to people? But don't forget that this 50, all this client service calls, number 6, count towards the 50. So there might be a few, right? You go to the barista to get your coffee on the way to the office and you talk to the barista, that counts. You go to the gym and you talk to 3 or 4 people, that counts. Everybody counts towards the 50 if, this is the key, if you ask forward questions. family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Ask them about them, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. When you talk to people about them and not about ourselves, they know what we do for a living. And now we're just loving on them. 50 a week, 10 a day. And then once a week at your Monday morning meeting with yourself, or whatever day you do that, update your database. What did I learn? Who do I need to follow up with? Just constantly updating anything that you need to update. The amazing late Jim Rohn, this is his quote: "The question is not whether the formula for success will work for a person, but whether a person will work the formula." It's not a matter of whether it works. You guys have so many rock star ninjas in your company, lots and lots of them. It's whether or not you'll show up habitually to work the formula. See, here's the problem with the Ninja 9. And I bet you're surprised to hear me say that, but it's easy to do. And anything that's easy to do is also easy not to do, right? So am I staying on purpose? Jim Rohn, again, I'm going to quote him over and over. Why would someone not follow the daily activities that lead to success? Well, here's his answer. The answer is because he or she does not think it matters. They don't have a why. They don't have something driving their behavior, if you will. It's called incremental change. Incremental change, the compound effect, the slight edge, whatever you want to call it, but it's incremental change. What we do every day matters more than what you do once in a while. What you do every day matters so much more than what you do once in a while. Again, to quote James Clear, he says this. He says, "Your life is an aggregation of your decisions repeated over time. Good habits make time your friend. Bad habits make time your enemy. Your life is an aggregation of the decisions repeated over time." Here's the best news I'm going to give you today. If right this second you're feeling like, my life sucks, I'm just telling you, Terry, my life is a disaster. Here's the best news ever. Number one, you're not dead. You're on this call and you're listening to me. Number two, change your habits. Change your habits ever so slightly every day for what's called the compound effect. Seemingly inconsequential change over time yields monumental results. That's the good news. Here's the bad news. Seemingly inconsequential change compounded over time can also yield monumental failure. It all has to do with the decisions you make that are repeated over time. As the story goes, she's not my agent, but Larry Kendall, he has an agent. She's given us permission to actually tell this story and tell it like it went. And Larry said he was doing her annual review, and when he was doing it, he said Mary was just a marginal agent. Like, seriously, how would you like if your leader called you a marginal anything, right? Like, I don't want to be in that category. So she's a marginal producer. Year after year after year after year. Well, pretty soon her daughters, she had 3 daughters that were, I believe they were like 1 year apart or maybe 18 months apart, but very close in age. And pretty soon her oldest daughter started visiting colleges, and Larry had his review with Mary, and all of a sudden she had a why, and she said, "Larry, here's the deal. I don't want my daughters to have any debt when they graduate from college." And he goes, "Well, where do you think your oldest might go?" And he said, "Well, not Yale. Yale, yeah, Yale, not Harvard, Yale. She wants to go to Yale, and it'll probably cost about $60,000 a year." And she goes, "Here's the problem. My second daughter does whatever my first daughter does. It's just the way they are. They are exactly the same. Well, that'll cost you another $50,000 or $60,000 a year." And then pretty soon, the third daughter, it's time for her to go to college. Well, Yale's not good enough for her. She goes to Santa Clara University. So now it's $75,000 a year. So she's got to make 125, 75, let's just call it $200,000 a year, right? And she goes, I need to make $200,000 a year. And he goes, well, Mary, here's the deal, friend. You actually need to make about 250 because you need to pay your taxes. But all of a sudden she had a passion, and our passion has to be funded. And here's what's interesting about Mary's story. Mary was a mediocre producer. Now she's got 3 daughters in college, and she becomes this producer that's earning $200,000 a year nonstop the entire time her daughters are in college. She pays for college and everything. But what do you think happened when they all graduated from college? And if we were in a classroom, I know what you would say. It's pretty across the board. She went back to earning at the old level. And that would be incorrect. Here's what happened to Mary that James Clear teaches about in his book, Atomic Habits. Mary's identity changed. Mary became a ninja. Mary became on purpose. She started identifying with being a $250,000 a year producer. The process to get there was the Ninja 9, and the outcome was the $200,000 a year. See, you have to identify with who you want to be. Herein lies all the trouble with our mindset and our habits, all of it, across the board, all of it. And that is, how do I identify? So we've got to identify based on habits. The ultimate form of intrinsic motivation is when a habit becomes your identity. It's just what you do. I am a person who is this. Instead of, I am a person who wants this. No, I don't want this. This is who I am. This is just who I am. That's how I roll. It's just who I am at the core. So where do you identify? Don't say to yourself, I want to be a ninja. If you want to be a ninja, you will be a ninja, but you've got to change your habits. The people that want to be a ninja have wanted to be a ninja for a long time. The people who are ninjas have gotten on purpose. The motivation that's created when that habit got formed changed their identity. So identity-based habits look something like this. The goal is not to run a marathon, it's to become a runner. Just to be a person that would be a runner. Like, I just want to have the dedication a runner has, right? It's not to run a marathon, I just want to become a runner. The goal is not to take a ninja class. The goal is to become a ninja. One of my favorite questions that I like to ask, I derived from this Aristotle quote that we've heard over and over again. We become what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, it's a habit. Here's the question. Who wants to be habitually excellent? I do. You do. You wouldn't be on this call if you didn't want to be. Who wants people to go, I don't know what it is about him, but every time he's around, I have this welling up in me of, I want to be better, and I want to be smarter, and I want to read more, and I want to love more, and I want to learn more. I just want to be habitually excellent. We become what we do repeatedly. We become what we keep doing. So what are you doing? So another really great part, and I promise I'll end soon, but another really great part of this book was the part that he called voting for your identity. I loved this one because you know how people are. They'll go, oh, if I've done it once, I've done it 1,000 times. How can you be so stupid, right? They have this self-talk going on, right? And that's a vote. At the subconscious level, that's a vote. And so every action that we take is a vote for the type of person that you want to become. Keep telling yourself how ignorant you are, or how clumsy you are, or how whatever, and that's what it will be. It works both ways, right? I'm amazing. I can't believe how on purpose I've been this year. This is amazing, but it's just like me. I've just become so on purpose. Talk to yourself the way you want to see yourself show up. Changing your identity starts with your self-talk. It really does. It's not up to anybody else. It's how you talk to yourself. And you might talk to yourself out loud. You might talk to yourself in your head. I do both. I talk to myself all the time. I talk out loud to myself all the time, even in a room where there's other people. Sometimes I catch myself just saying it because I need it, right? So what is your self-talk when you're faced with a decision, right? Would a healthy person do this? So pretend I want to lose weight. Would a healthy person do this or not? Would a wealthy person do this or not? What would a wealthy person do? What would a healthy person do? What would a ninja do? What would a ninja do? Ask yourself that question. Because if I want to change my identity, I have to change the way I think about what I do. So identify as a ninja. Your ninja 9 are the habits that vote for your ninja identity. Having a high income per hour and a magnificent life. That's what identifies us as a ninja. I had somebody say to me yesterday, and I really had to work on myself because it made me mad at first. You take a lot of time off, is what they said. You know, and then they put a number on it. That really ticked me off. I mean, like, you take 4 or 6 weeks off every year. And I thought about it. I have learned to not speak and just keep my mouth shut and think about it, because I know we can speak. If we think about it, we speak 120 to 140 words a minute, whereas if we just speak, it's over 100,000 miles an hour. Maybe you've never done it, but I've said things I wish I hadn't said. And that's because I just let it fly, right? Well, I didn't let it fly, but it ticked me off. It really did. But then I got to thinking about it and I thought, you know what? You're right. I do take a lot of time off. I work so hard and I am such a ninja. I'm so on purpose. And you know what ninjas do? They take a lot of time off. You should try it. It's exactly what I said this morning with love in my voice, lovingly, to the person who said it to me. Because you know what? I identify with my magnificent life. Don't make me think I shouldn't take time off. I want to increase my income per hour so I can have a life. That's our goal, right? So can I give you 4 simple steps for changing your identity? Number 1, decide who you want to become, not what. Decide who you want to become. Who do you want to be seen as? Your affirmations and your visualizations confirm your identity. I have a vision board just to the left of my desk that I'm looking at right now. This year, I had a big 16 by 20 picture made of a cabin on a river that I have no idea where it is. And I had it framed and it's hanging right across from my desk. Because you know what? Those both confirm my identity. So when I walk in my office, I see it and it confirms that's who you are. That's where you'd like to live. That's where you'd like to visit for 1 month out of a year, whatever, right? And then vote for your identity with your habits. Your habits, your actions vote for who we become. There you go again. You're amazing. It doesn't matter that I never did it before. Today's a new day. There's people on here that have been under my tutelage for years. And my favorite saying is, today's a new day. Start today, but vote for the identity with your habits. And then select your peer group that supports your identity. Where are you hanging out? Who are you hanging out with? Pick a group of peers, of friends, of whomever that are like who you want to be. Their outcome looks like what you want your outcome to look like. Choose your peer group wisely. Dr. David McClelland, as much as 80% of our success can be attributed to our reference group. Look at who you're hanging out with. Tell me about their lifestyle. Tell me about how much money they make. Your 5 closest friends, and I'll tell you a whole bunch about yourself. Well, that's dangerous, Terry. I mean, I might not be hanging out with the best group. Well, don't just drop everyone like a hot potato, but pick a better group to be with more than the group that you don't want to be like. I'm not saying don't be with them, because you might be what brings them up, but you have to pick wisely who you're going to hang out with. One of the most effective things you can do to build better habits is to join a culture where your desired behavior and identity is the norm. When Christian asked me to do this class, I was thrilled. And why? Because I love everything about your company, your brand, your company, your ownership, your leaders, your agents. And if I don't know you yet, I will love you when I do know you. But I've been part of your family for a very, very, very long time. And when you pick a peer group that have the desired behaviors and identity that you relate to, you become a better person. You become that identity. Nothing sustains motivation better than belonging to the right tribe. So let's just recap and wrap this up. We talked about choosing our peers, but the three steps to living on purpose. I've already given them to you, but I just want to give them to you again. Discover your why. Most important above everything else. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Control your focus and your emotional energy and fear. Am I controlling my focus? And if I do fall for a couple of days, I pick myself back up and put myself where I belong. That's how I want to be seen. And then focus on success habits and your peer group. In your handout, we gave you a reading called I Am Habit. I would love for you to read that over at your leisure. Life happens, friends, at the level of movement, not words. Here's my favorite way of saying this quote. It's time you quit talking about it and be about it. This system works if you'll follow the system. Thanks for spending an hour and 7 minutes with me today. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you, Christian. I appreciate you so much. I don't know if she's still on the call, but it doesn't matter.
I am Carrie. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Awesome hour.
Yep, you're so welcome. And I'm here. Of course, that's what I do. So I'll be seeing you guys soon. I don't remember the dates, but in the next, several months. And until then, go out and live on purpose. Vote every day to be amazing, habitually excellent. Bye, everyone.